in achieving common prosperity for all. We have acted on the ideas that lucid water and lush mountains are invaluable assets. We have persisted with a holistic and systematic approach to conserving and improving mountains, waters, forests, farmlands, grassland, and desert ecosystems. China's ecological conservation systems have been improved. Historic, transformative, and comprehensive changes have taken place in ecological and environmental protection, bringing us bluer skies, greener mountains, and cleaner waters.
We have applied a holistic approach to national security. We have resolutely safeguarded China's sovereignty, security, and development interests and strengthened national security on all fronts. We have secured important progress in the campaigns to combat and root out organized crime and responded effectively to major natural disasters. The Peaceful China initiative has entered a new stage. We have set the party's goal of building a strong military in the new era. We have implemented the party's thinking on strengthening the military for the new era, followed the military strategy for the new era, and upheld absolute party leadership over the People's Armed Forces. We have coordinated efforts to strengthen military work in all directions and domains and carried out bold reforms of national defense and the armed forces. The People's Armed Forces now boast new systems, a new structure, a new configuration, and a new look. We have fully and faithfully implemented the policy of one country, two systems. We have upheld the policy of one country, two systems, under which the people of Hong Kong administer Hong Kong and the people of Macau administer Macau, both with a high degree of autonomy. We have helped Hong Kong enter a new stage in which it has restored order and is set to thrive, and we've seen Hong Kong and Macau maintain good momentum for long-term stability and development. We put forward an overall policy framework for resolving the Taiwan question in the new era and facilitated cross-strait exchanges and cooperation. We resolutely have opposed separatist activities aimed at Taiwan independence and foreign interference. We have thus maintained the initiative and the ability to steer in cross-strait relations. We have pursued major country diplomacy with Chinese characteristics on all fronts. We have promoted the development of a human community with a shared future and stood firm in protecting international fairness and justice. We have advocated and practiced true multilateralism. We have taken a clear-cut stance against hegemonism and power politics in all their forms, and we have never wavered in our opposition to unilateralism, protectionism, and bullying of any kind. We have worked to foster a new type of international relations, actively participated in the reform and development of the global governance system, and engaged in all-around international cooperation in the fight against COVID-19. All this has seen us win widespread international recognition. China's international influence, appeal, and power to shape have risen markedly. We have made significant advances in exercising full and rigorous party self-governance. Guided by the belief that it takes a good blacksmith to forge good steel, we have put forward and implemented the general requirements for strengthening the party in the new era. We have set strengthening ourselves politically as the overarching guide for all other initiatives of party building. We have hammered away at the task of rectifying pointless formalities, bureaucratism, hedonism, and extravagance, and opposed privilege-seeking mindsets and practices. Thanks to these efforts, unhealthy tendencies that had long gone unchecked have been reversed, and deep-seated problems that had plagued us for years have been remedied. We have waged a battle against corruption on a scale unprecedented in our history. Driven by a strong sense of mission, we have resolved to offend a few thousand rather than fail 1.4 billion, and to clear out party of all its ills. We've used a combination of measures to take out tigers, sweat flies, and hunt down foxes, punishing corrupt officials of all types. We have achieved an overwhelming victory, and we have fully consolidated the gains in our fight against corruption. All this has helped remove serious hidden dangers in the party, the country, and the military. Through painstaking efforts, the party has found a second answer to the question of how to escape the historical cycle of rise and fall. The answer is self-reform. We have ensured that the party will never change its nature, its conviction, or its character. As we fully affirm the remarkable achievements we have made in the cause of the party and the country, we must not lose sight of the shortcomings in our work and many difficulties and problems that are confronting us. We have already put in place a series of measures to deal with these problems, and we must redouble our efforts to see them fully resolved. Comrades, the great achievements of the new era have come from the collective dedication and hard work of our party and our people. Here, on behalf of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, I express our heartfelt gratitude to all of our party members, to the people of all ethnic groups, to all other political parties, people's organizations, and patriotic figures.
Now that was Chinese President Xi Jinping making the opening speech of the 20th Communist Party Congress in Beijing. He put the focus on his party's core principles that he described as modest, prudent and hardworking. He also said about maintaining China's integrity in reference to Hong Kong and Taiwan. He said that Hong Kong should be governed by patriots and not by Western sympathizers. He also said that Xi Jinping also said that Beijing will continue to fight separatism in Taiwan and safeguard the One China policy. Also on the zero COVID policy, he said that he called the policy a success and referred to the approach as an all-out war. Now for more on this, our correspondent Patrick Folk is joining us live from Beijing, and we are also being joined by Jamil N. Jaffer, who is an assistant professor of law at Scalia Law School and the founder and executive director of National Security Institute. Welcome to the broadcast to both of you. Now, my first question is to you, Patrick. Xi Jinping just reflected on the past and also released a sort of a roadmap for the future of China. Do you see any major change from the past policies?
Well, in short, no. And as we heard a moment ago, this was President Xi outlining the achievements of the party over the last 5 years. He is expected afterwards to be outlining what the priorities are going to be for the next 5 years. And the general consensus is that the new leadership is going to be packed with Xi loyalists, and it's going to represent continuity. And so, you know, when we talk about policy shifts, and we are going to be listening out for very subtle changes in wording that could have a big significance. But generally speaking, we aren't expecting any major change in policy. Notably today, there was a report talking, when we're talking about the issue of foreign policy, for instance, there was a report today talking about North Korea, saying that President Xi had written a letter to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un talking about the importance of enhancing communication and cooperation. And, this is one of the things that we're looking closely at with regards to foreign policy. As we know, China has really been trying to strengthen relations amid this sort of growing isolation from the West. It's been trying to strengthen relations with countries like North Korea and Russia, and most recently that Central Asian bloc. And this represents a continuity of that position, which will be a concern for many people who see this as a sort of ongoing Cold War that China's engaged with with the West.
Absolutely. Now, Patrick, stay with us. Jamil, I want to come to you now. We saw very expected terms from Xi Jinping in reference to Taiwan and Hong Kong. He called for reunification and ending separatism. How do you see these comments in context of US calling China its biggest challenge in its latest national security strategy?
Well, look, obviously, we've seen the very aggressive behavior that Xi Jinping has taken towards Taiwan. The number of overflights by Chinese military aircraft, incursions to Taiwanese airspace and the like, demonstrate that Xi Jinping's policy is to go beyond just an outward expression of the One China policy, and eventually, in the long run, to formally assert control over Taiwan, much as they have over Hong Kong. That's obviously a big concern for the United States and for the West and for all of our allies in the region. And so it's more to be seen what happens there. But the U.S. has to make clear to Xi Jinping that that's not an acceptable outcome for the United States and for our allies in the region.
Right. Going back to Patrick now, Xi Jinping just called it zero COVID tolerance approach an all-out war. Many in China were hoping that the policy will see some kind of change after this Congress. How do you see the zero COVID policy panning out from here?
Well, look, it's anybody's guess, but, there were certain signs, not just a moment ago, but also yesterday with the Congress spokesperson Sun Yili talking about how China's approach had been the right one, and in terms of the economy, it had been the right one because it had prevented lots of infections and lots of deaths. But he also said that moving forwards, China would take a more accurate and more scientific approach. So read into that what you will. That does possibly suggest that there may be some changes that could take place in the future. But generally speaking, we don't see any significant change, certainly in terms of opening up borders and trying to remove the major restrictions on movement that exist right now. And a lot of people don't expect that to happen at least until after the parliamentary sessions take place in March.
Right. Now, the scientific angle is probably only coming in from Beijing. Jamil, weigh in here. Experts are telling us that Xi Jinping is aware of the policies that have turned detrimental for its own people, the very people that he had vowed to protect. Then why do you think he's not course correcting?
It's a great question. It seems like he's decided to focus in on this issue and really sort of enforce this policy over the long run. Why he's chosen to do that, it remains unclear. It does seem to be costing him in terms of support of the larger population. That's something he's obviously very concerned about. We've seen his anti-corruption move to clear out any opposition within the Communist Party to him. Now he's got to make sure he's keeps solidifying his base in the country. The zero COVID policy is causing him challenges there. To be seen what happens, whether in fact the scientific question does moderate that policy in the long run.
Right, absolutely. Patrick, I'm afraid we'll have to let you go, but Jamil, stay with me. I have another question for you. In the opening remarks, Xi Jinping said that his party has brought the Chinese people together in the very first few comments that he made. But many would disagree, won't you say, because he has some of the lowest approval ratings. Beijing saw some rare protests calling for his resignation. How do you assess his comments?
Well, look, I think he's making clear that he has the support of the political leadership and expects the rest of the party loyalists and the people who make up the Communist Party, the Chinese people, to support him in the long run. You're exactly right that he has faced protests at home. The zero COVID policy has caused him trouble. And of course, talk about unifying China. He's interning over 1 million Muslim Uyghur Chinese in what amount to modern-day gulags in the Xinjiang province.
Right, absolutely. Now, we spoke about Hong Kong, we also spoke about Taiwan and the zero-COVID policy. Do you see any other foreign policy coming up in this recent Congress meeting?
Well, what he's made clear is that China intends to take an active role in the world, that it does intend to build its alliances. It does see the West and the United States as a threat and an economic challenge. And so it is clear from President Xi's policies prior to this and now in his speeches here at the beginning of this 20th Party Congress that he intends to take a robust, lean forward approach, and that China will not sit back and simply remain focused at home. It will project its power, seek to project its power abroad. That obviously is a big concern for all of our allies in the region, for countries like India, Australia, Japan, and the like, as well as the United States, of course, being a Pacific nation.
Right, absolutely. Jamil, just stay with us. We want to cut across to Beijing for a brief moment where we are getting the visuals of the 20th Communist Party Congress that has started off just this morning. The event commenced with a long formal speech by President Xi Jinping, and around 2,300 delegates are currently seated. They are yet to elect the next party leader and debate on key policies. Delegates are also expected to elect various leaders, including the Politburo Standing Committee. Now, remember, this is sorts of China's equivalent of a presidential cabinet. And in the past, the twice-a-decade Congress was seen as a chance for leaders to promote their supporters. But this year, it seems like the focus is on Xi Jinping.
On all fronts through a Chinese path to modernization. Chinese modernization is socialist modernization pursued under the leadership of the Communist Party of China. It contains elements that are common to the modernization processes of all countries, but it's more characterized by features that are unique to the Chinese context. It is the modernization of a huge population, the modernization of common prosperity for all, the modernization of material and cultural ethical advancement, the modernization of harmony between humanity and nature, and the modernization of peaceful development. The essential requirements of Chinese modernization are as follows: upholding the leadership of the Communist Party of China and socialism with Chinese characteristics, pursuing high-quality development, developing whole process people's democracy, enriching the people's cultural lives, achieving common prosperity for all, promoting harmony between humanity and nature, building a human community with a shared future, and creating a new form of human advancement. To build China into a great modern socialist country in all respects, we have adopted a two-step strategic plan. From 2020 through 2035, basically realize socialist modernization. From 2035 through the middle of this century, build China into a great modern socialist country that is prosperous.
Jamil, thanks for staying on with us. We keep saying that, it's being expected that Xi Jinping might seek a third term in office, and we keep calling it unprecedented because it is. Last we saw this with Mao. So how do you assess this? How do you assess this in terms of an international space?
Well, obviously it's a big move for President Xi to take this additional third term on. It's clear that he's going to get it. This is counter to the reforms put in place by Deng Xiaoping to actually limit the power of any one individual. But of course, that provision in the Constitution that was put in place by Deng Xiaoping was removed a few years back by a party Congress loyal to Xi Jinping, sort of setting up this very moment. And so in a lot of ways, while what we're seeing happening is the formal, moment of that happening, this has long been coming.
Right. On that note, let's go back to 2012. Xi Jinping coming to power had fueled hopes among the West, at least, that he may be a sort of a reformer. Exactly a decade later, do you think his tenure has lived up to that expectation?
Well, certainly not. To the contrary, China has actually doubled down on its very problematic policies, its treatment of its own people, whether religious minorities inside the main part of China or its treatment of Muslim Uyghurs in its outer provinces, the way it's handled the situation in Hong Kong and the democracy protests there, its threats against Taiwan, its aggressive posture in the region, the conflict on the border with India. At every turn, China has shown itself to not be a positive actor in the region and across the globe. And unfortunately, a lot of that goes right back to the President Xi.
Absolutely. Thanks for all those insights. Thank you for joining us on WION World is One. That was Jamil and Jafar joining us from Washington. Now, that's all we have on this edition of the broadcast, but don't go too far. The much-awaited 20th Communist Party Congress has started in Beijing, and President Xi Jinping is eyeing for an unprecedented third term. Stay tuned to WION for a comprehensive coverage as we decode what this means not just for China, but for the world.